Welcome, bet riders around the world. My name is Gary Solomon, and you're watching the Laidback Bike Report. Guys, great to have you with us. Today, we have a great show in store. Let me tell you what's coming up. First of all, as always, our pal Honza Galla is going to be with us for the recumbent news. And kind of along with that, there's been some big recumbent news this week regarding Recumbent Cycle-Con. Many of you probably already had heard that it has been postponed for a year. We're going to have an interview with Chuck Coyne of Cycle-Con, and he's going to give you a history and what he has to do with Recumbent Cycle-Con over the years, kind of as a background to what to expect if you ever do get to attend it, hopefully next year. And then we're going to have our panel have a short discussion about the impact of the postponement for you to watch. Then we have Jason Dubin from Brooklyn, New York, back with us. You might have remembered Jason being with us previously about the many times he has crashed his velomobile. Well, he is on to a new project working with the youth of New York City to build velomobiles and to race them. Very exciting project called NAVRA. So you'll like that, I'm sure. Then we go down to Australia, where we meet up with our pal Ben Goodall, who has the Rotovelo velomobile, a Trisled. He has an update to it called the Rotovelo 2, and he's going to tell us all about that. Then our featured segment today is the Greenspeed Trike. It's Marshall Reeves and Mark Cruz are with us, and they're going to talk about a race across Michigan that they held with an Aero that was unassisted and a Magnum that was e-assisted. So interesting race across the state there. We hope you will enjoy that. We will then move off to the UK, where we meet up with Mark Lovegrove, and he is going to tell us about his installation of two different e-assist motors on his two bikes, he and his wife. So we look forward to that. So also, we have Larry Varney with us to review the tilting trike AR3, and we met up at a demo of the AR3 here in Ohio a week or so ago. I think you're going to enjoy that, and then we're going to follow that, bringing up the end of the show. Denny Voorhees with the sports, and he has a very cool interview with John McWhae from Alberta, Canada, who now holds the record for crossing Alberta, Canada on a bike with his recumbent bike. So lots in store today. Let's get on with it. First, let's meet our crew, guys. Come on. And Honza, unmute yourself there, pal. Sorry, I had to mute you there. We have our crew, a little bit of a skeleton crew, not that they've lost weight, but first of all, out in Colorado Springs, it is Larry Seidman doing the directing today. Hi, Larry.
Hey, Gary, everybody else.
And in Jackson, Mississippi, as always, it is our media man, Trey Burgoyne.
Howdy, folks.
Burgoyne.
Thank you. And moving out to the Czech Republic, it is the aforementioned Honza Galla, our news reporter. Hi, Honza.
Hi, glad to be here.
Good to have you. And let's see, down in Cold Spring, Kentucky, under the moon. It must be darker there quicker than anywhere else. It's Larry Varney. Hi, Larry.
Hi, everybody. Got my grass cut, and I'm ready to relax.
Good to know. Good to know. And Denny Voorhees, our sports director, is with us from Sarah, Pennsylvania. Hi, Denny.
How you doing, Gary? Looks like a fun day today.
I think it will be. All right, guys, thanks a lot. We look forward to the show, and we'll see you all later on. So how can you participate in this show? Well, you can do it on the live chat, either on Facebook by making a comment or here on YouTube We have the live chat going maybe over in that direction. Or if you are on mobile down below, please ask questions, make comments, chat among yourselves if you wish, or talk to our crew members, anybody else who's online. And let us know where you're watching from. We always like to see where that is. And I'll try to pop as many of those on the screen as we go through the show as possible. Now, you can support the Laidback Bike Report by liking us on Facebook, subscribing to us on YouTube, and don't forget to click the little white eye that's right up there. And that will take you to our website, laidbackbikereport.com. You can find out about upcoming shows. All of our past shows are on there. Our podcasts, which we do. You can buy a hat. If you like the Laidback Bike Report hat, you can buy one there too. So lots of stuff on the website. Finally, you can also support us financially by becoming a Patreon patron. We would really appreciate that. Patreon.com. You can just look up Laidback Bike Report, or we'll have the link in the description below. You can be a supporter for as little as $1 a month. All right. Also supporting us are our wonderful sponsors. Let me tell you about them right now. First of all, it's TerraCycle. Yeah, there he is. Makers of exquisite recumbent parts and accessories for your bent. And then Trailside Trikes, a fine recumbent trike shop on the Withlacoochee Trail in Florida and now also in Knoxville, Tennessee. And Cruise Bike, designed for the cyclist who wants to ride farther, climb faster, and adventure more. All cruise bikes and frame sets ship free in the USA. And TerraTrike Greenspeed, the best in leisure, performance, adventure, touring, electric, and portability. Wherever your adventure leads, TerraTrike will take you there. And Greenspeed, where Ian Sims designs bring performance through science and engineering. And Laidback Cycles, the top USA dealer for TerraTrike and the premier source for cat trike, ice, and Greenspeed. We give you the freedom to ride. And Recumbent Cycle-Con. Now, we've postponed the 2021 Recumbent Cycle-Con show, but please join us on October 8th and 9th, 2022 at the Montgomery County Fairgrounds in Dayton, Ohio. You can find the latest at recumbentcyclecon.com. All right, folks, let's move along now with the Recumbent News segment. And Larry, let's have a look at Honza's news report.
Hi, Recumbent riders. Honza from recumbent.news here. I do have two news items for you today, both from Germany. First is that Honza bikes are building new part of their factory now, and they are expecting to start the production there for the next season. It is a huge investment, and also Marek Hase, the owner of Hase Bikes, says that it should be 3 times more bikes produced there than they are able to produce right now without decreasing the quality. So it is a huge investment for them, and it is great to see that the recumbent companies are growing. The second item is from HP Velo. They have shown first series photos of their and sketches also of their hand cycle adapter. They should have one available for the next season, hopefully. It should be available for the Scorpion 20 and for the Gecko 26, and it should be available either with electric motor or without it. You will have a chance to read more about this project on Monday on www.recumbent.news. So if you are interested in it, just find it there tomorrow. And that's all for the moment. have a great day, have a great time, and ride as much as you can. Bye-bye.
Always good advice. All right, you want to bring Honza? There we go. Honza, hi. Any further updates on the news other than Cycle-Con? Are you good with everything so far?
No, not really. I think at least the Recumbent Cycle-Con being postponed is the biggest news for this week, for sure.
Right. Okay. So, Larry, I'm going to right now. I'm going to read the statement that was released by Charles Coyne at Cycle-Con, so everyone is on the same page here, literally. Then we're going to go to Chuck's history of Cycle-Con, so you really understand what this all entails. And then we'll come back and talk a little bit about the impact that this postponement has had. So just a couple days ago, we got this headline, 2021 Recumbent Cycle-Con postponed. We have made the difficult decision to postpone the 2021 Recumbent Cycle-Con. With the current surge in COVID cases, and so many unknowns about what may happen in the next 2 months, postponing seems like the most responsible thing to do at this point in time. So the Recumbent Cycle-Con has been rescheduled for October 7th, 8th, and 9th, 2022. So with that in mind, let's, I recorded a full interview with Chuck about not only the history, but of course, a preview of the upcoming, what we thought at the time was the upcoming show this October. I've removed that part of it, but let's take a look at the history according to Chuck and see what Cycle-Con's all about. Larry? All right, guys, with me right now is Chuck Coyne, the producer of Recumbent Cycle-Con. Chuck, welcome back to the Laidback Bike Report.
Hi, Gary. Good morning. Thanks for having me back again.
I think maybe we'll start with your thoughts about the goals of Recumbent Cycle-Con right from the very beginning. I guess, why did you do this?
When there used to be a major bicycle industry trade show in Las Vegas called Interbike. And so some of the larger recumbent manufacturers would exhibit there, and the dealers would go there and visit as best they could. But it was a pretty expensive show for smaller manufacturers, and by smaller I mean even the larger of our recumbent manufacturers at that time were still small compared to the larger companies that would exhibit up at Interbike. So every year, the first night of the show, there would be a recumbent industry dinner, and that was hosted by Pat France at TerraCycle. And during the dinners, people would always moan and groan, "Oh, Las Vegas is so expensive," and that sort of thing. And people would say that what the recumbent industry needed was a show of its own. So one year I finally said, okay, I will put on the Recumbent Cycle-Con, and you guys had better support it. And kind of the rest is history. So we had the first show in 2011, and all the recumbent manufacturers from A to Z showed up and supported the show, and have been exhibiting loyally ever since. It's become a kind of an annual go-to event for the manufacturers and especially for the dealers, because it's an opportunity for the dealers to get to talk directly with the manufacturers about things that are important between dealers and manufacturers, and also to see other members of the industry, the accessory manufacturers, and that sort of thing. So our initial thought was to have a one-day industry show followed by 2 days of consumer access to the show, because it's a lot of work, a lot of expense for the manufacturers to bring all their equipment, all their staff, all their booths and bikes and trikes and that sort of thing to a location. And so it just kind of makes it a little more cost effective for the exposure that they get with the inclusion of the consumers. And that provides the manufacturers with a very good opportunity, or kind of a rare opportunity, to interact directly with the consumers and find out what consumers like and don't like about their products, what they might think about future products and that sort of thing. So it's kind of evolved into a big 3-day get together every year, social and business as well.
What stands out over those years, the last 10 years or so that you have done Recumbent Cycle-Con? What stands out is things that are very memorable, and what are the highlights as you recall from doing the show all these years?
It's hard to single out any particular highlight. Of course, you always remember your first one, and that was the 2011 show at the Los Angeles County Fairplex in Los Angeles in 2011. And looking back at that, we learned a lot about putting together good test demo track. That's always a big attraction each year. We then skipped 2012. And so the second show was actually 2013 rather, also in Pomona at the Fairplex. And after that, we went to Chicago, to St. Charles for a show. We had actually planned to do 2 shows there, but the venue was no longer being used as such a venue. And so we went from there to Cincinnati to the Sharonville Convention Center for 2 years. From there, we went to Philadelphia 1 year, and then 2 years in Nashville, Tennessee. And last year we were supposed to be in Dayton, but of course the COVID hampered that. And then we will be in Dayton again next year. Best memories is I think it's really seeing, especially people who are new to recumbents, get their first opportunity to ride a recumbent bike or a recumbent trike. The smiles, as everyone knows who's ridden them for any time. It's always infectious to see someone's first ride on a recumbent, and so that's kind of fun to see new people. I think one of the gratifying things that's evolved over the years is also the growing awareness of folks with adaptive needs coming to the show. As everybody knows, especially a lot of dealers that are friendly towards the adaptive needs folks. Recumbent trikes are very, very handy for people who have had strokes or other mishaps, to enable them to get back on wheels and pedal again. And then, of course, recumbent tandems, whether they're such as the Haas Pinot or recumbent trike tandems, are real good for people also who have special needs and need a pilot with them in order to facilitate riding safely. So that's really been kind of an unexpected but a very welcome part of the industry that I think recumbent manufacturers are doing more and more to embrace as time goes on.
Let's talk about logistics, if we can, for a minute.
Sure.
So nobody knows more intimately what it takes to put an event like Cycle-Con on each year. And I'm curious as to what you do to put it on. What is it all is involved, and what does it take? And what does it take out of you to put on a show each year?
The first shows that we did in Pomona, we timed them so that they were shortly after the big Interbike show in Las Vegas, and we would actually bring a big trailer filled with recumbent exhibitors, bikes and trikes from Las Vegas down here to Southern California and store their bikes and their trikes and their exhibits until it was time for the Recumbent Cycle-Con, in order to make life so easy for them to exhibit at the show they could not say no. Now, the things have evolved such, especially with the shows being back east, that we can't do that any longer. So from the shipping and receiving perspective, it's gotten much easier. We're not sort of reinventing the wheel every year any longer. We have a pretty well standardized layout for each of the show floors that we go into. It's new the first year. The second year, we use the same floor plan for the exhibits, and the entrance and the flow of people through the hall, and kind of the same for the outdoor demo riding arenas. We have a good idea of how long is too long for a track, and so we try and make the track too long, but if you make it too long, people are gone too long, and then others are waiting for the bikes and the trikes for their opportunity to ride. So there's a line you have to meet there so that people aren't complaining that it's too short. But if it's too short, we don't limit how many laps you can make. So take another lap. There's plenty of time. And so the logistics of getting exhibitors signed up, that's just a lot of phone calls, emails, and that sort of thing. The logistics of getting the consumers there, that's, a lot of social media these days. The great job you do publicizing the show here on your show, Gary, and then Bent Rider Online does a great job of keeping the word on the show up on their site. And so after 10 years now, there's pretty good word of mouth that gets out there, and that certainly helps too. And Gary, I want to thank you for having me on the show tonight, and for supporting the show for all these many years.
Chuck, you were right there at the beginning of the Laidback Bike Report, helping us get on our feet to start out with. So it's been a pleasure working with you all these years, and always excited to tell folks more about the Recumbent Cycle-Con as we're doing right here. Right. So a postponed Recumbent Cycle-Con has impacts on the industry, the recumbent industry, and of course on the folks who would have attended it. So at this time, I'm going to bring Honza back up, and maybe Denny, and when Larry comes back, bring him in too, Larry. And let's start with Honza. If you wouldn't mind wearing your hat as a representative of AZUB, a manufacturer, tell us, there it is. Tell us how you had looked forward to Cycle-Con, maybe how you always do, and what do these postponements do to a manufacturer?
Well, first of all, I wanted to say that my best year or best memories are for the first show in Pomona in 2011. It was my first time in the US, and it was great. And the great weather, sunny weather. So we have enjoyed it there with my father at that time. And since then, I was always looking forward to the next edition, to the next fall, when I have a chance to fly over to the US and see all my friends and interesting people there. And really, I have quite some friends in the US since the first visit. So, and I think it's the same for everybody else who is get used to visit the shows, not only the Recumbent Cycle-Con, but also the Spezi show. And and it's been the last time we could see each other was at the Recumbent Cycle-Con 2019, if I'm right. The Spezi 2020 haven't happened. It does happen 2021 again. And I from the manufacturer's point of view, it will be difficult to promote news or to explain the news to customers and so on. On the other hand, we have so many issues delivering bikes. There are a lot of issues with in the supply chain. So I don't think there will be very many news in the next months and years. Also, I would be a bit afraid of, Hardy Seebecker from Spezi, and also Charles Coyne from the RCC, that they will have a hard time to survive 2 years without the shows. From the business point of view, it must be difficult for them as well. And then my last note was about the disrupted everything, not only logistics, but like everything around. We don't have the flow anymore in the companies and the marketing guys, and so on and so on. So this will be kind of difficult to restart when we will have a chance to visit the next show again.
Those are some excellent points, Honza. The social aspect of meeting up with friends every year and catching up on things is such an important part of what goes on. The other really, I'll also emphasize the other important point that I think you made, that is the difficulties that the manufacturers are having right now in the supply chain, which we've talked about a number of times, and that would have impacted whatever Cycle-Con would have been this year, without a doubt, I think. And we actually, when we get to Trike and Greenspeed, Marshall is going to have a little something to say about how that has been impacting them and what's going on there too. So just important to emphasize that. And Denny, sure, go ahead. Let's finish up.
A feedback, like for the manufacturer, feedback from customers and the dealers is really important. And also comparing the, let's say, the Spezi show to Recumbent Cycle-Con. On the Spezi show, we have far more end consumers coming, but there are, on the Recumbent Cycle-Con, we have a lot of end consumers as well, but many dealers. So the feedback is very important, and many manufacturers get used to visit the dealers. I mean, the European at least, visit the dealers after the show or before the show. So additional feedback is available, let's say, but we don't have the needed feedback now. And I do have quite some phone calls and so on, but you cannot really
it's not the same. It's just not the same as the face-to-face
even
contact.
not an hour-long phone call helped as much as
right. Honza, if I could have you answer this, because you're the one to answer this too. Mark Feldman, does anyone have an idea when we're going to start seeing the end of this supply chain issue that we've talked about? I know that's impossible to answer this, but give us an idea from your standpoint, Honza, if you would.
It's getting worse still. So we are not at the bottom of the like
trough,
of the difficulties, let's say. And so I think open like the best ideas, let's say, are about 3 years from now.
Oh yeah, as far as it really coming to an end. Okay, thanks. Denny, if you would, I guess you and I have attended quite a few Cycle-Cons, and I'd want you to maybe give the perspective of someone just attending and riding and seeing what's there. If you could quickly just tell us what you think you missed most by not being able to attend these events.
Obviously the bikes, I'm a bike guy, and I miss riding the new stuff and seeing what's out there. And of course I'm a people person too. And I it's like old home day when you go to the Cycle-Con. You get to see the folks that you've spent time with over the years. And I know a lot of the manufacturers, a lot of the guys that have been building these bikes for a long time. And it's always fun to touch base with them and spend some time, and that I'll truly miss. And it, this going 2 years without it's something to look forward to next year, I guess.
It's kind of like withdrawal, isn't it?
It is.
Can we pop Larry Varney in here? Larry, also briefly, so you have a unique perspective as well, Larry. You've attended many of the Cycle-Cons. You've been at the Bent Rider booth over the years, so you have that perspective. Tell us what you always got out, the most important thing you got out of Cycle-Con, and what you miss most by not going.
Well, I think I'll sound an awful lot like Denny, the meeting the people, the seeing the equipment and all that stuff. There's always just that being able to actually go up and see the people and talk to them and find out some things maybe that they haven't made public. I swear to secrecy and all that stuff. And so far they believe me. No, but seriously, it's kind of like a gathering of a large family. And you just think, yeah, I hate having to wait another year to see these people and all that. But, we're still kind of in contact with Facebook and emails and so on like that. But there's always the fun of seeing them in person. And then, if there is some new equipment, some new trike or bike or whatever, it's great to find it. I mean, because sometimes I didn't even know that I was looking for something, but I'll sit on it and I'll ride it and I'll think, oh, I want one of these, and my wife hates that, but sometimes that happens.
Right. That's absolutely true, Larry. And you never, there's no substitute, all the phone calls and Facebook and online interactions you want, there's no substitute for sitting on a bike or a trike or trying something that's at a physical place that you could put in your own hands or sit on and ride, right? So, right. All right. So we're gonna close off the discussion for now. There's a lot to be said about this. We will keep you all posted as to the latest with Recumbent Cycle-Con and Betsy as we go forward, and we're all just hoping we can do it next year, which is what we said last year, I know. But all right, folks, we need to move along here. The next segment I think you'll find really interesting. It is the amazing Jason Dubin, who has started this interesting organization called NAVRA, which he's going to tell you about right now. All right, guys, we are here with Jason Dubin. Jason, welcome back to the Laidback Bike Report.
Hello, always a pleasure.
It's great to have you back. And Jason's going to talk to us today about an organization that he has recently founded, a really interesting project of his. And I'm going to let Jason tell you all about NAVRA. So, Jason, go ahead and tell us what you're working on these days.
Yeah. NAVRA is the North American Velomobile Racing Association. As if you've been following any of my exploits, I'm like always in or around the things. And I was trying to figure out a way that I could propagate this to the general public. Of course, what we do is very unknown. I've been riding in my own neighborhood for 5 years now, and people still are amazed like it's the first time they see me. And I was trying to think, how can we get more velomobiles out there when people don't really know about them? How can you actually generate money that way? So I decided, instead of trying to sell velomobiles, I would just figure out a way that I could get them made where selling them wouldn't be an issue. And I decided the way to go with that is vocational training. We're living in a culture now where hardly anybody knows how to build anything. And I figured, and as I'm coming to learn, I can get grants to teach vocational skills. And making a velomobile requires plenty of vocational skills. You're doing assembly, it's dealing with CNC routers, so you're dealing with CAD files and three-dimensional stuff. There's also welding involved, TIG welding, and the electrical systems that have to be installed in that. And these are all skills that are all ending up in China now. And we should be able to do this here as well, like we used to. So that was my basic premise and how to get this thing rolling. So my next decision was to actually form the corporation. So I reformed NAVRA as a 501c3, a charity. This way I can get grants, and I can people who do give money to me can take it off on their taxes as it's a charitable contribution. So we started that just a couple of months ago. The next decision was, once I have these made, how do I get this out to the general public? And the plan is once I have 10 of them constructed, I'm going to be running a weekly tournament throughout the borough of Brooklyn, and possibly maybe some other boroughs, depending on how it looks. Say every week on a Saturday or Sunday, I would be getting permits to operate out of many of the parks in the borough that are already well built for bicycling. They have loops and figure eights. Also, I would be getting permits to set off a street for, say, a couple of hours where we could do drag racing. I'm only planning to do drag racing and time trials. I am not going to do what they do in Australia, which is fabulous. I love it, but the last thing I want are collisions. As you know, I know all there is about collisions. No collision. And that's how the kind of races we're going to have. The next decision was what models to make. And I decided to use the aluminum models that we're all familiar with because they're already there. All the plans are there. It's already like put into routers. I didn't have to reinvent the wheel. So the models we're going to start off with is the A2, the Elevator 2, the A4, and the A8. The Elevator was the first model to ever be manufactured on any sort of big scale as models. I think it started in the late 80s. They stopped manufacturing them in 2000, and then Mr. Edelson in Texas started making them. And I'm going to be purchasing his data as well as the machines that he used. And I believe he has 1 or 2 models still left that I'll be transferring back to New York to start with. The other model will be the A4, which is a popular model, but I suspect mostly we'll be making the A8, which is the raciest one, and the one that more looks like a modern velomobile. We may also make the A9 if I can get my hands on a printer big enough, because that one was designed to be made out of composite material, but they have a 3-dimensional design of it. So potentially we can print the whole thing out. We're going to look into that. Depends on how much it costs. In the long term, I eventually would want to make a model with a composite body. In fact, I'm making arrangements with Velodreamer in the Ukraine to have him design one for me, which we could then make in the States. I do have mechanical training. I went to Brooklyn Technical High School, and when I was at Yale, I studied sculpture, and I learned how to do welding, arc, and acetylene. I'm not familiar with TIG, but I think I can learn it. Besides myself, the 3 major people you should learn about is Miles McAfee. He's an academic. He teaches in the city. His father was a professional baseball player of the same name. He played for the Pittsburgh Pirates. And he was the first black coach at St. Mary's College in California. And they had a very successful career. And Mr. McPhee here will be the race master, who will be handling the rules, and who will be setting the venues. The other 2 people we'll note are Michael Golub, who is a professor in Indiana, who specializes in electric conversions. He has made electric snowmobiles and electric cars, and he'll be specifically involved with the electric motors. And we have to make them with electric motors because people want to buy them with electric motors. Though the racing may or may not be. We'll probably have electric races and non-electric races. The last person involved is Angus McAfee, who is an engineer for the city on the Staten Island Ferry. Once this first location is up and running, I hope to spread it to other cities. NAVRA should appear and could appear in any major city where there are bicycle activity. One place we're thinking of right off the bat is Indiana, as Michael Golub is operating out of that city. We'll see how much interest there is. I would like teams to develop as well, which should compete against each other on a national level, which I think would bring interest up and also would attract viewership. NAVRA. I have a lot of hopes for this. I've lived a long life, and I've had doubts about other things I've done, but this is the one thing in my life that I'm convinced will be a success. I mean, feet up in the air, how wrong can you be? I was hanging out outside of work, waiting for someone to show up who was like 15 minutes late. And if this person hadn't been late, this would have happened. So I'm sitting outside of work, the velomobile is right in front of me, and Chuck Schumer happens to walk by. He lives in the neighborhood where I work, and I see him regularly, and we've spoken on occasion. So I saw him the next day, and I told him what I was up to, and I asked him if he could help me, and he said he could. He gave me the name of one of his assistants, And they directed me to a congressional funding program that Schumer has and the rest of the Congress has. And I made the deadline by like 5 hours.
All right, that sounds great. All right, Jason, let's finish up with telling the folks how they can find out more and how they can support you.
Yes.
How can they do that?
Go to the website, NAVRA.US. There's a description of what we're doing, a sample of the models, who we are, and ways that you can help us. There's a link right over the front for an easy $20. But if you want to be a member for $100, you get the NAVRA t-shirt. If you have more money to burn than you deserve or just lucky, you can pre-order a model. You can become a founding member for $10,000. You'll get a model of your choice. We'll just start making them out, paint it as you want. I'm not holding my breath on that. I'd be happy if you all just send me $20. It will all add up.
Very good. Jason Dubin, once again on the Laidback Bike Report, we sure appreciate what you're doing. We are excited about NAVRA and wish you lots of success with it, and we'll keep our eyes on this project.
Thank you very much.
What an interesting idea. Jason's a remarkable fellow. So, yeah, support him if you can, guys, and we'll keep our eyes on this project. It'll be interesting to follow. So, okay, time to move on to our next segment with Ben Goodall from Australia. He has been working hard for quite some time to update the Rotovelo velomobile. And here is our conversation from a week or so ago about what he's doing about it. All right, guys, we are now talking to our pal, Ben Goodall, down in Australia. Ben, welcome back to the Laidback Bike Report.
Good morning, Gary. How are you?
Good. So, Ben, you are the owner and creator at Trisled. I wanted to concentrate on giving us an update on Trisled and the new Rotovelo version that you're working on. So let's start with the situation down in Australia right now.
Well, it's just like the rest of the world. We're going in and out of lockdowns and having arguments about vaccinations and all that kind of fun stuff. I would describe it as a little bit like musical chairs here in Victoria. We're going to about our 5th or 6th lockdown. So when your music stops, everyone jumps on a chair and just sits around and waits for things to get going again. So it's a little bit stop-start, which means, we're still working here. We're still innovating. We're still building bikes for people, still doing customs, still doing Greenspeed, and obviously working on Rotovelo. But it's a lot of time you just have a little bit of a stop, and you just don't make a deadline, and then you get going again, and you try to catch up. But, we're just trying to stay positive like everybody else and keep moving.
Has it affected your business in a serious way? Problems with components being available and supplies? Tell us how that's going with you guys.
My impression is probably, unfortunately, the worst is probably yet to come for us on that. We weathered through 2020 pretty well. Amazingly, actually, because our racing market came to almost a ground halt, and that was well over half of our work. Building racing human-powered vehicles for the Australian racing HPV scene. But we pivoted across to doing a lot of special needs work and custom work like we're able to do, and also made a relationship with the Greenspeed guys. And it really resulted in 2020 just being a massive pivot year and changing to a different market. And it was not business as usual, but it was sort of business of the same intensity. This year could be a little bit more challenging, I think. We're still stop-starting. We have had a couple of races, but we've just had to cancel a couple of races due to some current outbreaks here in Australia. And obviously supply difficulties with trikes made in Asia at the moment is becoming a bigger problem, and we're just not able to sort of really get our retail shop really moving at all. So we just do what we do. We go out in the workshop and we custom build stuff with whatever's lying around, I guess. Yeah, look, that's one of the things about Trisled is because we are sort of a little bit more diverse than a lot of the builders. We have completely our own in-shop facilities and composites, as well as frame building, as well as assembly and engineering. We can pivot a little faster than a lot of people, but we obviously can't do in bigger numbers as a lot of people either. So, this can go to suit us in some senses and obviously really hurt us in others. As I'm sure it is for everybody else, we've all got our strengths and weaknesses, and when when the plan changes, your weaknesses come out a little more, don't they? So yeah, you just got to power on and adapt.
Could you just briefly describe the Rotovelo for those who don't know about it, and tell us why you decided to take the next step in terms of updating it?
Yeah, look, Rotovelo is going on, I think, our 10th year of production this year. So it's starting to develop a bit of a heritage, which we're very proud of. It's a unique velomobile in as far as its construction methods are like no other. It features a chromoly chassis like a conventional recumbent trike would for a very distinct reason, in that it uses a rotational molded polyethylene shell, which is similar to the way a kayak is made or a water tank in some countries. And the genius of this idea was centered around the idea of a durable velomobile that you could use in busy city streets and busy urban environments, as well as touring. So that's Rotovelo in a nutshell. And after 10 years of building it in much the same way with minor updates, we're now in a position to really take things to the next level and address a lot of feedback we've had from our current users.
Let's talk about the new version, if you can. Can you describe what changes have been made with the new version? Yeah,
look, probably plaguing Rotovelo's existence the whole way through has been it doesn't have suspension in its original version, and we've copped a lot of flack about that and why it doesn't have suspension. Now, it doesn't have suspension in the original version for a very distinct reason, that in our testing, we confirmed that when the vehicle weighs more than about 35 kilos, it doesn't really earn its keep aerodynamically and doesn't really make for a good velomobile. It's kind of the worst of both worlds. Now, the durable construction methods of Rotovelo in the past meant that we just didn't have the weight window for suspension. An exciting development happened around about this time last year in working with our molders, in that we managed to improve our molding methods and set up our tool a little better. And we were able to get a massive 4.5 kilos of material out of the shell weight. So that gave us 4.5 kilos to play with it to basically start having a look at the customer feedback and ways that we can improve the product. We've changed the steering geometry. We've now added 4 degrees of camber and a little more caster, and that does 2 things. It gets the wheels tied up in the arches a little bit more, so that reduces water spray. It also grabs a little bit more stance in the vehicle and more exciting and more lively handling. To do that, we've then in turn moved to an indirect steering method instead of a direct steering method, featuring a central handlebar. This slows down the steering back a bit so that it's not too lively and has a nice feel in your hands. And one of the customer feedback things we had from many velomobiles, not just our own, was the need for real handlebars, full-size grips and full-size brake levers and things that can just really hold your hands and make you feel like you're in control of the vehicle. So in the new Rotovelo, we're featuring an above-seat steer full handlebar with full-size brake levers, full-size gear levers, and nice big plush grips to hang on to, just so that when you are descending or you're moving a little bit faster than you normally would be comfortable with, you feel like you've got the vehicle, in your hands and in control. Suspension-wise, we have moved into a rear swing arm with an air shock, which is tunable, and urethane front suspension, so that we have more rear suspension than we do front, and stiffer front and softer rear. Now, this means that we can control the roll rate of the vehicle so that it's not too body rolly around the corners and still has the nice plush handling that Rotovelo has been known for. But obviously soaks up the bumps nicely with the big travel in the rear suspension.
Okay, and part 2.
So we've also done some work on the interior. Rotovelo's one of many unique features of Rotovelo is that its seat is molded as part of the shell, so that it's all watertight in there. The pro of that is obviously that it's watertight, and the cargo space and the body space all sort of intertwined, and there's no chance of anything going anywhere or getting dirty from outside water or whatever. The negative of that is the seat is in the one place, and we had to make a choice on where that seat was when we made the first Rotovelo, and it went to suit the vast majority of people. We did pretty well. However, 10 years on, we've been able to survey and get feedback from our clients, and we've realised that we needed just a fraction more shoulder space. So we've adapted the mould to have just a little bit more shoulder space, the shoulder sit a fraction lower in the shell, which gives taller riders a bit more space, and smaller riders a bit more aero because your head sits a bit lower in the machine. Also a safety benefit there in that the roll bar actually sort of takes on more of the load if you do manage to have an incident. So the seat also now has, with the extra space, we can use 3-layer venter seat cells, seat pads instead of the 2-layer, and we can also even put in lumbar supports and so on. I will go back to the shell for a moment and talk about that. As far as that, now that we're molding it in a more advanced fashion and we have more control over it, we now also have the option to mold the shell in polypropylene as well as polyethylene. So in our releases, we're actually going to offer both alternatives. The vehicle featured in the photographs that I've sent through is a polypropylene shell, which is in turn painted, and that enables you to have obviously the nice automotive finishes and obviously any colour you want, which is obviously something people really like. However, the polypropylene shell is stiffer and more presentable, but not as durable as the polyethylene shell, which is the original premise of the Rotovelo. So the standard polyethylene shell will remain, and we'll actually gauge customer feedback on which people like better. Painted polypropylene shells will obviously be a price premium. Polyethylene shells come in only a handful of colours, but are more durable. So pros and cons both there. We're going to let the customers decide on that.
All right, Ben. So I guess finishing up here, I'd like to know about when these new versions of the Rotovelo will be available.
Well, when we set out to do this, we said it was going to be ready for springtime, but I didn't say which springtime. So, so that means that I'm still on time technically. Just 2 years we're behind where we wanted to be, like a lot of manufacturers right now. But we're about to open the pre-order process for Rotovelo 2. The way it works is if you want to order a Rotovelo 1, you still can. And I should also point out that the Rotovelo 1 is the lightest Rotovelo. It's now a sub 30 kilo. So there is advantages of ordering the old model, as well as a 6 to 8 week turnaround time if you order it. Or you can go in the pre-order for the Rotovelo 2 now and place your interest and deposit down. We're aiming to wind up with our production prototype work probably, as I said, in the springtime for deliveries. Sort of in September, October there, we would like to actually start taking on our first batches.
I guess we need to make sure our audience is clear on the fact that this is the middle of winter in Australia, and when you say springtime, that will be coming up in our fall here in the Northern Hemisphere. So did you say that the Rotovelo 1 is lighter than the Rotovelo 2?
It is now. So we saved around 4.5-5 kilograms. We can divvy that out 2 ways. We can build the Rotovelo the way we used to and take advantage of that weight saving, or we can add in these new features like we're proposing for Rotovelo 2. Really just adhering to our original design premise of not exceeding 35 kilo, basically. So we're staying at the 35 kilo, but packing in some of the features people have wanted. But I personally may actually stay in a Rotovelo 1 with the new shell because I love the climbing. It's around about, I think it's about 29 kilo mine at the moment. And I mean, that's the same as any composite velomobile out there nowadays in a durable polyethylene shelled machine. So I love the fact that I can roar down a fire road or something, or I can leave it outside or do those little errands in it. I like the freedom of Rotovelo, and I'm now obviously starting to get some of that performance. Still to determine the final weight of Rotovelo 2, we're still finalising. The photos I've sent you are actually our preliminary prototype. And when I say preliminary prototype, we're out to 7 prototypes on Rotovelo 2 over the last 5 years. And all of the previous prototypes have not really offered anything that the original vehicle didn't already have, so we're scrapped. This one's the first time we've built one where we feel it's a sizable improvement. From we are now actually developing our prototype, dining out some of the production bits to make it as producible as the original Rotovelo. So once we've done all that, we'll know the final weight. But our current prototype is definitely in the ballpark, so it's great.
All right, Ben, some great information there about the Rotovelo. So how can folks find out more information about the Rotovelo? Where can they find you?
First of all, if you are interested in the Rotovelo 2, register your interest by dropping us an email, which is just info@trisled.com.au. We hope to put some info on our website soon, and I also hope to put a pre-order video in our YouTube channel in the next couple of weeks. But I also should point out that my YouTube channel is actually where you'll find out most of things about what's going on at Trisled. all of our custom work goes on, and our prototype work, we often just do short grabs and what's going on there. So get in the YouTube channel, have a look around if you want to stay in the loop with this. And obviously, when we have things on the website, we'll put them up.
All right, then we're going to say goodbye at this point. We will have all the links in the description below to everything with Trisled, the YouTube channel, and the website, and the email as well. Ben Goodall, thank you so much for taking the time to bringing us up to date on everything with the Rotovelo and with Trisled. It's great seeing you again, pal.
Thanks for your interest, Gary. I really appreciate it.
All right, a little clarification here. Joe on the chat said, I think the website's still the first version because I had pointed him to the website. And as you heard from Ben there, they have not updated their website to talk about Rotovelo 2. It may be just a few months away. Probably, according to Ben, watching his YouTube channel will give you the most information about it. So look for that information about pricing and more details about the Rotovelo 2 coming up. All right, let's see here. We need to move on to the featured segment here, which is going to be the Greenspeed, mostly Greenspeed and TerraTrike, of course, but mostly Greenspeed race, where we had Marshall and Mark from that company racing an Aero and a Magnum. One had an e-assist, one didn't. Really interesting and fun story. I think you're going to enjoy this. So, Larry, let's start her running. All right, folks, with us right now are Marshall and Mark at Greenspeed TerraTrike, and they've got quite a story to tell about something they put together last week. And I'm going to let them tell the story to you. Guys, how you doing today?
Doing great, Gary.
Good. Real good.
All right. Why don't you introduce yourselves, tell the folks who you are and what positions you hold there at the company, and then we will get into the story.
Sure, Gary. So my name's Marshall Randall, and I serve as the marketing and sales director at Wizwheelz, which does just that, handles all the sales and marketing for both Greenspeed and TerraTrike. Sitting beside me is
Mark Cruz, managing director. So I keep an eye on this guy right here.
full-time job.
Yes.
No doubt. All right. So, Mark, I guess you were keeping your eye on him last week. So, Marshall reached out to me a few weeks ago and gave me a little heads up about this ride that you guys were going to do that I called the Cross Michigan Trike Ride. I know you guys have a different name for it. Could you guys tell us about what this ride was, whose idea it was, and then we'll get into the details.
Sure, Gary. So, yeah, we kind of internally affectionately call it the S2S, shore to shore. Essentially just involved riding from Lake Michigan, starting at Ludington and heading east and ending at Bay City along the shores of Lake Huron. And as to whose idea it was, I think it was just me kind of, mentioning, wow, let's do something. Mark and I did a great ride last year, so we thought, what could we do that was epic this year? And I don't know what hit me about it, maybe because we thought about doing a gravel ride last year, right. And I said, okay, so let's see if we can do from shore to shore in a day, 140 miles. And from there, kind of became multifaceted as to the why. Yeah. I mean, everything from let's test out, some of the latest things from Bosch and see what we can do with that to, with Greenspeed now under our belt, we have this really neat trike called the Aero, and just how slippery, how fast, how quick is the Aero? Can we pace ourselves to both kind of same effort, same finish time in one day?
What a lot of people don't know is our hero of the story here, Marshall, used to be a pro triathlete, and he's always got a need for speed. So he was really drawn into the Aero, and man, how fast, how efficient can I go on this thing?
I think the really interesting part of this story is that the Aero unassisted was riding with another trike that was assisted, but we haven't heard about that specifically. Did I miss that? No. So we've been playing around with
the Magnum as a platform from Greenspeed. It's an amazing platform. You can do a lot of stuff with it. And over the past years, over in Australia and here in the U.S., people have put fat tires on it and all sorts of stuff. It's just a great platform. And so we know we're going to electrify Greenspeed. The question is how? How do we want to bring electric into this? As you can see, performance through innovation. What can we push the limit on with this? So we tried a bunch of different things, and part of it too was me going, all right, well, I got to keep up with this old guy on the Aero. So how am I going to do that? Untrained, fully trained. How am I going to do that? So we had a Bosch CX performance line motor sitting around, 2 500 watt hour batteries that we jammed on the sides like torpedoes. And we said, let's see what this thing can do. So it was kind of a little bit of a Hail Mary pass to, untested. Let's go try it, see what happens.
And so let's then delve into the ride. And Marshall, you said you started in Ludington, is that correct? And lined up side by side, I guess Mark revved his engine, and you just kind of got your pedals ready, and then off you went. When was this?
So literally, it was on the 19th of this week, July, and Monday morning, kind of break of day, getting out of there around 6:30, and not a lot of traffic. Yeah. And for the first part of the leg, 33, we had a really nice shoulder on the side of the road. You probably have been on 10 before, Gary, and just headed west to Baldwin. Made it there well under our expected time. We segmented the ride on a map and kind of had specific stop points where we knew we wanted to be and take a break and that sort of thing. Whether that's just fill up the water bottles, a splash and dash, if you will. But anyway, got into Baldwin ahead of schedule, and the next leg. Well, I'm going to back up a step. You asked about what was really kind of cool about the ride. So rather than just blast through this, I'll tell you with the fires in Canada and stuff, and I'm sure a lot of people have noticed how orange or red the sun has been if they've experienced that smoke coming over. Here in Michigan, our weather has been really affected by the smoke from those fires. Beautiful underneath morning. The bright red sun, we're riding east, and it was such a cool morning. I mean, the weather was just perfect.
Marshall must have been feeling good because I'm on the assisted trike, and I was struggling to keep up with him at times there. He hit anything from flat to a slight downhill grade, and he was well above 20 cranking along. I mean, we were cruising along 10 at 23 to 25 miles an hour, no problem on the Aero for him. And man, I was feeling like a hamster at times. So for me, I have to say that's fun. Going fast is always fun, and it was just a beautiful landscape.
All right. So early on, you were quite frisky. You were cranking it, no problem. But this is early on in this day-long ride. So let's move along. So you're on 10. Describe, if you would, some more of the next part of the ride. Where were you riding, and how were you feeling and doing in that part of the ride?
Sure. So from there, from Baldwin, this small town in northern Michigan, you jump on the Pure Marquette Trail, which is really popular among recumbent trikers. But the next 17 miles is all gravel crushed limestone on the Pure Marquette Trail. And you have everything from horses relieving themselves on the trail to leaving their big, deep hoof prints to, ATV vehicles on it. So that part was not the most fun. And then we had the invasion of the...
Wow. Yeah, the horse flies. I could see Marshall, and in the slipstream behind him was a massive swarm of biting flies, just chasing them for 17 miles.
So, Marshall, you actually did a scientific test there determining that black flies can actually fly upwards of 20 miles an hour, even if you're in the Aero doing 21 miles.
Well, that is the problem, Gary, is that on gravel and a slight uphill grade, the dynamics of the Aero just go away because, I didn't change trikes, didn't change tires, stock Aero. So that on that kind of surface was a little bit of a rough go. And so I would say we were probably, anywhere from 8 to 12 miles an hour on that. That was a long grind.
Yeah.
Okay. But that 2 wins.
Very good. All right, so let's move on then to the next portion of the ride. Did you meet tarmac again?
Oh yeah, in Reed City, the Pure Marquette Trail continues, but yes, it changes to pavement, and literally, that's not really the halfway point, but it's kind of the halfway point from elevation.
Yep.
Because you're climbing from the lake, kind of all the way up to that point, and now you're heading back down towards the other lake. So you've got kind of this gradual uphill, and now you've got the downhill. So that was, for me, that's where the fun really began, because, I don't know exactly how many miles it was from there to Midland, but.
Yeah, quite a few though at that point. I think we were only about 60 miles in at that point about Reed City. So yeah, long haul yet to go. But you can see Marshall just taking off after that point. And, we didn't look at elevations beforehand, but afterwards we were both wearing, Suunto watches with GPS tracking and everything. And to see the graph of the elevation change. Now, we're not mountainous here in Michigan, but still that slight downhill on the Aero, he just took off. I mean, he was gone.
All right, so as loath as I am to take the spotlight off of Marshall for even a minute, Mark, I was wondering, so give us, at this point, you're halfway, a little bit more than that. Give us your assessment of riding along with that Bosch e-assist on the Magnum. How were you doing, and how did you feel about it? And how much battery did you use and all that?
I got to say, the biggest struggle while riding along on the Bosch, on the Magnum, was digging through my food bag to see what I wanted to eat next, really, while Marshall's pouring in sweat next to me. It was, I don't want to say it was easy, but, I was untested. I hadn't trained for this at all. I just jumped on and said, hey, can regular Joe jump on and go across state with the e-assist? And I think at this point I was still a little apprehensive. Starting to get a little bit of range anxiety on the battery life, but ultimately, trying to watch my wattage that the Bosch was picking up and keeping it under control. I think I was feeling good. The further I went, the more accomplished I felt, obviously, and the more confident I felt in the system. The Trike ran flawlessly. I mean, there was no issues on either machine. No
Zero.
Problems. But, you start feeling the quads. Not to jump to the end here, but we figured out how far we rode and my average cadence, and we came up with about 33,600, revolutions that I did. So when you stop and think about it, and ask somebody to jump on a machine that they haven't ridden a whole lot and said, yeah, go do 33,000 turns of that. That's a lot, and it takes a lot out of your legs. But overall, yeah, it was a great time. And at that point, I think just trying to make sure that Marshall wasn't overtaxing himself to make sure he'd go along, because I didn't want to tow him into the finish.
No, and I don't know if your CPR training is up to date, Mark, or not, but it's something I'm sure we're concerned about. So the e-assist, then, it sounds as though it was the great equalizer in this, and so that's great. All right, so let's get ourselves to the end here. You were, I believe, around Midland. You were. Did you see the Tridge, my favorite bridge in the world?
We had to cut off early because Marshall here was worried about the distance and mileage, so we were going as tight as we could from shore to shore. So we missed the Tridge by 1.5 miles, maybe 2 miles. We cut off to the north there. So unfortunately not, but we were able to scoot out some country roads.
All right, well, this interview is over, fellas. I really wanted the Tridge story here. This is what I was leading up to. The rest of this, really, I don't care about.
The interesting thing is, I think both of us, Gary, thought, well, I can't speak so much for Mark, but I'll say for me, certainly, I thought 100 miles, not a big problem. I knew that like 120, somewhere around there, I was going to start feeling it, and I think that just came to fruition. Yeah. The last 15 miles or so for me was, I'll admit, it was pretty tough. But again, that e-trike is a great equalizer. So in that instance, for Mark just to sit up front and to draft behind him, it really made it a lot easier. And being able to just hold a very consistent cadence, very consistent effort, pretty easy with that Bosch unit.
That was what was really cool for me. Unnerving at first, but Marshall was hanging off my back wheel there at a certain point. We're cruising around 19, 20 down the road, and I could just hear his freewheel going, and he wasn't pedaling a whole lot. He would pick up that draft and just float right along on my draft there. So it was pretty cool to experience that too, and how I could just keep spinning. So
very nice to pick them up at the end there. So you guys end up in Bay City. Tell me what the scene looked like as you achieved your goal of your shore to shore ride.
It was great to come in and see the shoreline and tons of confused people. What are these nut jobs doing? So yeah, I'll let you how it felt going in.
Yeah, boy. There's that emotional piece of it for sure, Gary, that you've completed what you set out to do. And not really, I think, admittedly, I wasn't sure if I'd be able to do it all the way, 140 miles or not. But anyway, the emotion of finally getting there, married with I'm just plain pooped, worn out. I'm going to back up into this. I think the interesting thing for me, comparing the traditional diamond frame bike and all the riding I've done on that versus the recumbent, and I don't think this is going to be new for the listeners or for you yourself, but for me, it was new. It was interesting in this regard. I felt like I was able to just really wring out every little bit the body had to give. In this sense, when I ride a diamond frame bike, my back is going to hurt. I'm engaging shoulders and triceps and different things.
Yeah.
And things tend to give out, and I don't totally deplete the body like I think I did on the Aero. Kind of laying down in that position, all the energy is going right into glutes, quads, and calves. Just what you need to propel yourself forward. So when I got to where I was empty, I was empty. So
you still had a little bit left though, because we got to the end of the trail and there was sand, and we had to get our wheels back into the water. And so we get up there, and our right-hand man here, JC, he was super helpful. He said, Marshall, let me do this for you. Marshall about slapped him out of the way. He said, nope, I'm doing this. I'm finishing. So he drug his trike right across the rest of that beach and dropped the wheels in the sand or in the water. So it was cool.
Marshall has an incredible amount of pride in what he does. That's evident, in his work and in his play. There's no doubt about that.
So that was
go ahead.
Another thing I'd like to add, and you've already brought it up, and Mark's brought it up, but if there's a punctuation mark for me, Gary, we've talked so many times about e-trikes and how when people of different abilities for all kinds of reasons get out and ride, that ability to jump on an e-trike to make it an equal kind of effort, and so that you can both ride the same distance. Like I said in the very beginning, the reasons why to do this, pretty multifaceted, but if there was one complete answer at the very end, it just comes back to that, and that's why we're seeing this explosion of e-trikes. It really makes being able to do maybe things you don't think are possible, really possible. 140 miles in a day when you haven't been training, that's pretty huge in my book.
That's what I wanted to get out of this and be able to, I guess, share with people is the inspiration to go out and do something that you think you can go, 10, 15 miles on. You can go half a day, a full day, whatever it takes. So to set your horizons a little bit further than what you normally would, just a little bit. I ran in eco and tour mode on a Bosch system most of the way. I never went into sport turbo, and it wasn't that taxing really. So people can go out and do this, and it is the great equalizer. But Gary, you haven't asked the one question I was hoping you would yet, and that is, who won?
Well, Mark, I don't like to pit personalities against one another. We're all friends here. But, when it comes down to it, that's what people want to know. Who is the winner? And certainly, even more importantly, who was the loser? Mark, tell from your standpoint, who won?
Well, I wouldn't say just my standpoint, but fact, by that viewpoint of facts out there, I won. I may not have the water first, but I didn't train. I got to sit around, grill out in my front yard and drink a beer while this guy was out working his butt off to make it happen. Boy. So I really feel like I won in this whole experience.
Marshall, any retort to that spike?
Nothing that would incriminate myself. So I'm going to decline to answer.
All right, fellas, that really, it's a great story, and I congratulate you both on what I'm sure was a great fun time. It sounds like. All right, so that was a really fun story to talk about, and while I had those two available for the interview, I wanted to find out more about what is going on in the industry with Trike and Greenspeed's point of view. Honza's told us a little bit about some of it from AZUB's standpoint, and industry component shortages, all kinds of shipping issues. Let's hear from their standpoint what's going on today. Let's segue into the latest news at Trike at Greenspeed. Everyone really wants to know about the issue of supply with trikes and bikes, of course, as well in these really tough times. So what's the status there with you guys? What have you got on hand shipping out to dealers, and where do you see this going in the coming months as well?
I'll jump in here and you can add in, but boy, supply, of course, everybody's dealing with huge demand, and the industry is trying to play catch up. But really, Gary, from our perspective, we have containers coming and going on a regular basis. We get little lulls here and there, but we've got so much in the pipeline that's coming in. We just got 2 containers this week, 2 40-foot full containers. We have 5 more containers we're waiting on to get out of between Long Beach and Chicago. So we've got a lot of product flowing through the system. And I feel very fortunate that we've got a great team here to keep that moving. So from our perspective, we're making it happen. I know a lot of other people are struggling out there, and a lot of customers are asking where's their trike, and dealers as well. So it's coming. Things are happening. We are feeling some pinch points here and there, but ultimately, we're doing great.
I would say, Mark hit on that one point. We have a great team here, which is really what's made it happen. I think the one thing that I would just point out is, there's been a delay in getting that kind of pipeline filled. And now, like Mark said, 2 containers in, containers staged in Chicago, stuff hitting the port in LA, things on the water, containers closing in Taiwan. All this lines up to just now starting to see this steady stream set up, hopefully for some time now. But it certainly hasn't come to challenges. And I want to recognize that, every manufacturer's had their different problems. Everybody's kind of got a different business model. We've had ours, but I think we've kind of done a great job of navigating that and starting to see the results of that hard work and, getting product in for the consumers.
Guys, let's finish up with a question about an event coming up in October. So Recumbent Cycle-Con, very close by here in Dayton, Ohio, is on the horizon. And with in mind the... All right, well, it's really not on the horizon, so I'm going to interrupt that interview. The rest of it was just about what their plans were for Cycle-Con, which doesn't make any difference right now, does it? So, but great news there from Marshall and Mark. As far as their supply goes, they seem to be faring pretty well. And we appreciate having those interviews with them. So let's move along now to the UK. And Mark Lovegrove is going to tell us about a couple of installed e-assist motors that he has worked on recently. Let's have a look, Larry. All right, guys, we are now going to take a short jaunt over to merry old England and meet with a friend of ours, Mark Lovegrove. Hi, Mark. How are you?
Hi, Gary. I'm fine. Hi to everybody.
It's so great to have you with us, and I know you've got an e-assist, a couple of e-assist installs that you'd like to talk to the audience about. So why don't we start there? Mark, could you tell everyone what motivated you to install e-assist on your bikes?
I've been thinking about it for a while, and I during the first lockdown last year, I've been looking at it for a while, and I just wanted to try it, and I just wanted to keep it cheap, so I ordered a front hub motor for my bike, for my Boschetta. And of course, I like tinkering and fiddling with things, see if I can get them working. So that was the main thing for me, and to keep it cheap at the time. I didn't want to spend too much in case I didn't like it. And I don't always like it now, but I do mostly like it.
Could you describe for us the installation process for?
Yeah, both fair, really simple, really. I mean, I had a couple of problems with my Boschetta. I had to file the dropouts, which I didn't really want to do, and I still think I can put the original wheel back in, but I had to file the dropouts to get the wheel to sit in enough so that the anti-rotation tab sat in the dropouts. It took a bit of filing. I had it up on the bike stand and kept filing and then trying it and filing. Got there in the end, and it has worked ever since. The other issue being Julie's HP Vela Technic, I had to take the front boom out and the cranks off and took it to the LBS, the local bike shop. And we appreciate them when we need them. And I took it there, and they mounted the boom up onto the bike stand, had a massive spanner on it, and managed to undo the bottom bracket. And he said there was another guy holding the boom, and they was giving it a bit of whirling. I could never have got it off with what I've got. I bought 2 different motors, and in fact, my whole thing about showing everybody is they are just so different. I bought a front hub PA assist motor, a pedal assist motor for my Boschetta, which when you pedal, it assists. Julie tried that and didn't like it. She didn't, and so I bought her something completely different, which is a torque assisted mid-drive, which goes on the front of her, which is a bit strange. But anyway, so it's a torque assist mid-drive, and you have to apply pressure to the pedals to get it to work. It's a Tongsheng TSDZ2. It's a very good motor, very good. I have to confess, and this is a shame really, but I haven't actually tried them both. I haven't tried Julie's because her bike is fitted far too small for me to try it. I've done 100 yards, and it's good. One day we'll give it a proper try.
Let's have a look at the video you shot of the 2 bikes with their motors, and tell us all about your experience with this.
Yes, this is my Boschetta, and this is the one I fitted, and it's a very good bike, actually. I think I started with this because I switched it on specially to show everybody, and we'd done a 47.5-mile ride, and it's only showing 1 bar down, but it's probably nearly 2. I mean, I have it on the lower assist with Julie because they're both not really compatible, because this one pushes me forward when I pedal away, and I have to have it on the low assist to so I don't bump into the back of Julie, basically, who's having to pedal hers. This is the PAS sensor, pedal assist sensor, which has always worked very good. I've adjusted the thing a couple of times, but I haven't touched it for ages. It's very good. It's never let me down yet. Down to the front hub. I tried to get this in. Obviously in England we're only limited to 250 watts and 15 mile an hour, which is what it shows there. It's a 20-inch wheel, 36 volts, and it's illegal not to do anything. I did put another spacer in the forks to make it so that side missed the forks. I put another washer in it. This is a bag I bought, and this holds the controller, and all the wires are all curled up inside there. That's the only place I could fit them, really. Put 2 zip ties on there to keep it away from my legs. It works very well, and I don't have to look at them because they're a bit untidy. Wiring, and I did some soldering. I've never ever done soldering before, but I did my first soldering, and that seems to be okay. There's my 36 volt battery, 17 amp power. It is okay. I bought the wrong battery, really. There was in short supply, and I just bought one, and wished I hadn't, but I will change it one day. This is okay for now. I bungee it on the back, and it works very well. I've tried it in a few different places, but it's on the back. All in all, it does work very well, and it's nice to ride. It truly is. And it's very hilly where we live, and not that much, but it's very hilly. Now we're on to Julie's Grasshopper, which I fitted this very neat front front mid-drive to the front of her bike, and it is a very neat little motor. It's only, you can feel the weight of it. Julie says the bike's maybe top heavy, but it seems okay. And yeah, it was quite easy to fit, really. This motor's slightly different. Mine's got some different wiring, but which I will explain in a minute. Yeah, it's a nifty little motor. Yeah, it is. And of course, it drives through the chain, so you are putting pressure on the chain and extra chain wear. Had to buy a 55mm P-clip. It clamps the motor, stops it from spinning. Again, it was very simple, obviously. But it does drive through the drive chain on this one, whereas mine doesn't. And it can wear it out again. But there's the wiring, more wiring. This is a different type, and this one's got a speed sensor, which you have to fit. And for obviously a recumbent, it doesn't reach. So you can actually buy a 1 meter extension cable, which came in handy. And it's fairly easy to do again. And it works very well. It's never let us down. Up to Julie's battery. Julie ordered a 19 amp hour battery, and which seems to last a long time. I know we haven't took it to its limit, but yeah, she bought a battery cover for it as well, and which I'm taking off. Yeah, I mean, this is a good battery, and this is actually mounted to her frame because to her rack, because this is solid mounted. Because I found it very harsh when I solid mounted it to my Bruschetta, because this one's got suspension, and it works very well. I bolted it to her rack, which is good. And yeah, push a little button, you can't see that. But yeah, no, it's very efficient motors. They both are, really. Because for me, it's not speed really. It's range and just the ability to be able to climb hills a bit easier, which I like. And yeah, it's good. They're both very good bikes. I mean, Julie didn't really want e-assist. I had to cajole her for a few weeks to give mine a try. And at the end of the trial ride on mine, she did 5. At the end of that, she said she didn't really like mine. So we bought her this torque-assisted one, which you have to push the pedals. Gives her a little bit more exercise, which is what she wanted. And she quite enjoys it. And obviously, she's still got her RANs, which... And I actually, this motor here has got a bit of drag when it's not on, but mine... I can leave the battery at home, and I do occasionally, and ride it with no drag. And so it's very good. You can ride it with or without. If I was to do this again, and of course I did a lot of research, or a fair bit at the beginning, and didn't really know much, but if knowing what I know now, I would probably choose the Tongsheng motor. But if I was going for a PAS motor, I'd probably go for a different company, I would expect.
Very good, Mark. So that was interesting, and your very personal experience with both of those motor installs, and now you've learned a little bit about them, and I hope that will help some of our viewers make some of their own decisions about their e-assist. Any final thoughts, Mark?
My final thought is that you can't really buy recumbents with e-assist. You can buy, well, you can, but they're specially fitted. But on up-rungs, you can get many different e-assist bikes, but recumbents you can't. That's one of the reasons I fitted them, and it could inspire someone to fit one. And they're very simple, really. I mean, they're not that difficult. It might be a bit daunting, but not that difficult.
Well, I hope folks will be inspired by what you did. I'm sure some people will. Mark Lovegrove, thank you so much for sharing that story, and thank Julie as always for us, and thanks you guys for being such great supporters of the Laidback Bike Report. These guys are awesome. Thanks to Julie and Mark once again. We appreciate that submission. Okay, let's move along now to the one review we have today on the show. It's our esteemed reviewer, Larry Varney. He's going to tell you about the Tilting Trike AR3. Let's see it, Larry.
Hi, everybody. This is Larry Varney, Northern Kentucky. Today's review will be about the AR3 recumbent trike. And some people might say, well, another trike. No, this is a little different. This is a tilting trike. When you sit on it and ride it and all that, you'll notice that the wheels in the front and in the rear, but not to the same degree, they tilt as you turn or at other times when you don't think you're turning. Anyway, I'll get into more detail on that. But before I forget, this is from David Ashenbrenner of Kazi Bikes, the AR3. I joined a group of people of a demonstration of the trike a couple of weeks ago. And I just have to say that the general impression was very favorable and sort of amazement. I don't know how many of you tried to ride different sort of bikes or something that, say, have front-wheel drive or something, like the cruise bikes and all that. There's some getting used to it, some learning what you need to do and what you should watch out for and so on. And this is kind of like that, because when you first sit on that trike, if you lean to the left or the right or something, the wheels lean. So it's like, whoa, so sitting still on it will feel kind of unnerving because it feels like you're just going to tilt all the way over. You don't tilt all the way. You don't fall out or anything like that. But sitting still is different from when you're riding it. Once you start riding, then you'll notice slight tiltings as you go around a corner. If your natural inclination is to lean into a turn, the wheels will lean too. And you're thinking, oh, and it's like they say, it's kind of like on a regular bicycle. If you going around a corner, curve or something on a regular two-wheel bike, you lean and the wheels lean with you. And that's what you do on this trike. And you can, as you might assume, this is going to aid in the performance of a turn. It's going to be able to go a little faster and so on. How much faster, that depends on how comfortable you are, and the more you ride it, the more comfortable you'll be. I had a lot of fun with it. I found out things about it that I hadn't even thought about, one of which other people even mentioned. You can steer without using your hands. You just basically, as you're going in a straight line or something, just lean a little bit and lean a little bit, and as those front wheels lean too, that turns for you. Now on to some more details of the trike that I always like to bring up some of the things that I'm not too happy about versus, what I really think is great. And in the case of this trike, I can't say that there's anything that I thought was horribly bad. Now, the one thing that I'm not crazy about with it can be easily fixed, I'm guessing. It didn't have a rear rack. It's kind of like, where do you put your bag that you're going to carry your necessary things, spare tubes, phone, whatever. It had a little shelf behind the seat, but how you would carry anything on that just seemed a little difficult. I could have got some a Ziploc bag and double taped it on that little shelf, and probably as a last resort that would work if you want to carry a spare tube and so on. But it didn't look to be that difficult, and as you'll see in the pictures of the trike and so on, of getting a rear rack to work on the back of this trike. So that was my main complaint right there. I do think that once you get onto the trike, that's where you'll find another thing that you might have problems with at first, is the front wheels and so on, and the everything is a little further forward than what you might be used to. A lot of us, we get onto a trike, and when we put our legs up against where the cross member is, we're practically sitting on the seat already. And this, you're not. It's a bit further forward. So you're going to have to stick a foot behind that front wheel thing, and then another one, and at the same time you're handing on brakes, then sit down. So it's going to take a little practice, and it'll take you getting used to, but it's not a big deal. It's just like, oh, okay. And there were times when previous trikes were built just like that. So this is not something horribly unusual, just a little different. So let's see what else. Riding it, lots of fun, like I said. The idea that as you're going along into a curve, it'll lean with you, and you think, wow, I can really ride with this thing. And you can get some speed up doing that through the turn. So it has the effect of not having a tire scrub, so your front tires should last longer too. So that's great. Another thing I noticed that I wasn't fond of, if you're on a road or something, or a trail or whatever, that's a little off camber, the trike will start to lean, and you're saying, no, I want to keep going straight. But since the road was tilted, so will the trike. So, you'll notice it, because what happens and this is another thing that you may not have known, is that the steering is also connected with all that leaning and so on, that you, as you pedal and as you steer and lean, the steering changes a bit. So as some people have complained in the past, oh, I don't like recumbents and trikes and all that because I don't get my upper body exercise. You will with this, because your hands and your steering do play a part. It's not major. It's not like you're lifting up heavy weights or anything, but you will notice it. And in some degree, you are going to get some upper body exercise, so that's a good idea. Kind of like it. The trike I reviewed was set up for a more flat place. The David Ashenbrenner, they live in Florida, so it was really set up with a really big chain ring and so on, which would be great if you're down there in the flatlands on it. But some of the hills up here in northern Kentucky, I kept thinking, gee, I need a better granny. I don't need that really high top end up there. I'm not going to go that fast up these hills. So that brings up the other point. Right now, the trike is not being sold through dealers, but you'll get it, if you wish, directly from the manufacturer. And when it comes to what gearing you want, any other little parts and stuff like that, talk to him, because he's going to set it up the way you like it. I know he's even working in the background on maybe looking into suspension for it. Right now, it doesn't have a suspension, but it still is comfortable, But so if you want something with really big granny or really high top end, whatever, talk to David Ashenbrenner and he'll set you up with it. Now, I do want to talk a little bit about the trike specifications that a lot of people are going to say, well, this is what I want, this is what I don't want. Anyway, this trike had 20-inch front wheels, disc brakes. It had a seat that was padded, not quite what I'd call a hard shell or web. It's a padded seat, and it's comfortable. I like it. It's very nice. 26-inch rear wheel. Had some pretty fat tires on it, but as I may have mentioned, that you can set it up the way you want it. You can talk to David and say, I want some really skinny tires. I want a high pressure. I want to go fast. But anyway, back to the specs on this trike. The frame, you'll notice, is square tubing, which I like. It's made out of chromoly steel, so it's not the lightest trike in the world, but I've ridden lots heavier. The rear end, like I said, 26 inches. It's had a rear fender. Didn't have the front fenders, but you can talk to the manufacturer about that too if you want. Anyway, the price, as you may have seen in the trike in the picture and so on, $36.95 for the trike that you see, and you buy it directly from the manufacturer. He's not going through dealers yet, but I'm guessing it won't be too much longer. One other specification that a lot of people do want to know about: what's the turning radius on this thing? Is it going to take me, a shopping mall parking lot to turn this sucker around? No, it's not. It's got an 8.5 feet turning radius, so the turning circle is going to be, do your math, 17 feet, which isn't bad. One thing, I didn't get a chance to try it, but he does have a version with electric assist. It's like $52.95. So if you want to get the electric assist, you can pay for it. The length of the trike, well, it's got a width of 36 inches and a length of 84 inches and a ground clearance of 4.5 inches. But for general bike trails and all that, somewhat gravel, this is fine. I mean, I took it off-road a few times when I was testing it. It's not, if you want to go really big fat tires and really rough terrain, again, talk to David Ashenbrenner. If you get a chance to see it and ride it, do it, because I think you'll enjoy it. So thanks for listening, and hopefully see you again soon.
All right. Very nice. Let's see, Larry, we're going to talk to you. And Denny, Larry, could you bring Denny up for a second too?
Yeah.
So, Larry, that was an interesting review. You and I had a good time with Dave and Cheryl Ashenbrenner when they were up here in Ohio for the demo days. but I thought maybe we can quickly get Denny's impression as well, because earlier, a month or so before this, Denny had a chance to do a test ride on the AR3 down in Florida as well. Denny, could you just take a minute and tell us what your impressions?
Yeah, pretty much what Larry said. You know, it's a different feel. The bike is a different feel. But once you learn that your body will do a lot of the work, and most of the work, just leaning there back and forth, it becomes fairly natural. Now, I think somebody I know, matter of fact, because I've ridden a lot of trike, has ridden a conventional trike, will be put off a little bit to begin with. But you give it a little bit of time. And I've talked to Dave about this, and I said that's the one thing is people who have, because when Dave designed this, he'd really never ridden a conventional trike, what we have out there now. And he's only ever ridden one of these. And so he was kind of, we talked about it, and I said, this feels different. You're going to just have a different feel to the bike. And people are going to be put off by it at first, but stick with them. Point out the fact that the body does most of the work, which he did to me, because I spent some time on it, and we swapped bikes and that kind of thing. And I spent some time on it. My shoulders were a little bit sore because I was really trying to muscle it. It didn't have to. Once I figured that out, or once he made me figure it out, it wasn't bad at all.
Great.
One other thing I'd like to comment on too is what I really enjoyed was Larry didn't point it out, but this frame is one size, and the crank is adjustable. The crank position is adjustable for your height, which is really kind of cool. It's something you don't see very often. That's something with the square tubing, it makes it very easy to do. I like Larry. I like that square tubing frame. I thought that was genius. It was something you've seen it on KMXs and stuff, but never really on anything else. But he's made use of that square tube and made that the crank is adjustable to the length of your body. So that's really kind of cool.
And that worked out great during the demo days because he had so many different folks there. So, all right, Denny, hang on where you are because we're going to go to your sports report in just a second. I'm going to give Larry just the last word here to sum up his experience and last thoughts. Okay.
I'm trying to think if there's anything I didn't say before that I want to say now. Other than one of the things I talked to David about that was the possibility of turning this into a velomobile, building a shell in front of it. And I thought, now that would be something, because right now it has the performance capabilities of that leaning into a turn and all that, of being a bit faster. And if you were to put a shell around it, or at least just a good fairing on the front, I don't know. I thought, now that would be something. I'm trying to think of anything else I didn't cover. It's going to take some getting used to. The most, noticeable irritant at first is when I sat on it, is by accidentally leaning or something while I'm sitting still, it's feel like, ugh, and then you got to muscle the wheels straight again. Once you start rolling, the exertion to get it straight again gets easier and easier. Just when you're sitting still, or if you want to roll it backwards or something, you think, oh God, it's leaning. That goes away. So as I said before, if you got a chance, take a look at it, sit on it, ride it. You may like it a whole lot. So give it a shot.
And unfortunately, of course, the AR3 was going to be at Cycle-Con. Dave and Cheryl were going to be there, so more people get a ride. So I'm guessing they're going to have more demo days around, to see whether they can show it off to more people in the meantime. So, all right, I think we're going to leave that there. And Larry, thank you so much for that. And we're going to say goodbye to you for a minute. And Denny, you hang on, but I think the first thing we're going to do here is have a look at that interview that you did with John McWhae. So Larry, if you'll hit that, please.
Welcome to the Sports Report today. And we're interviewing John McWhae of Canada, and who just set a cross-state record, cross-province record actually, for on a Bicchetta recumbent. So John, talk to us a little bit about it. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, thanks so much for inviting me. It's great to be here. So I'm been riding recumbent bikes for about 15 years. I have arthritis, and I used to ride road bikes, and I couldn't ride any bike for 10 years. And I tried a few recumbents until one worked, and then I haven't looked back. I've ridden a lot and toured a lot on recumbents. The bike I used for this is my Bicchetta 3.0, which I built. I bought the frame from Dana at Bent Up Cycles, and when I built this bike, I built basically everything to go fast.
Yeah, I noticed that you had modified that Bicchetta for tiller steering. Any particular reason for that?
Well, the first bike I had was a Burley, and it actually had tiller steering, and it had a big wide bar on it. And I noticed that if I move my hands from sticking out to the center of the bar, I could shift up a gear. And so I've used tiller steering on all of my bikes since. I think it's faster. And so I built that steering column specifically to get my hands directly behind my knees. And that steering column has 4 different brands of pieces in it. It's a construction from my parts bin to get my hands right where I wanted them by my knees.
Tell us a little bit about the route.
Yeah, so I rode across southern Alberta. Alberta's a big province, and that's the shortest crossing is the 374 kilometers that we did. So I left the mountains, the Rocky Mountains, at 6:20 in the morning, and I headed straight east on the number 3 highway, and that took me through the Crow's Nest Pass, through the city of Lethbridge, on south of the city of Medicine Hat, and on to Saskatchewan, and we arrived in Saskatchewan at 5:59 p.m. So the average speed for WUCA, based on elapsed time, is 32. My riding time elapsed speed was 37.2 kilometers an hour. My average speed, according to WCUCA, I believe is 19.93.
So how much time off the bike did you take?
Far more than I wanted to. An hour and 39 minutes.
Wow.
We had 3 flat tires. It was raining when we started, and there was a bit of stuff on the road. 3 flat tires. At the far end, with 15K to go, it started raining again. The center part of the day was nice. And then my left pedal gave up and wasn't retaining my foot. And so we had to change a pedal then in the pouring rain. Unfortunately, the rain actually stopped by the time we reached Saskatchewan 15 kilometers later. The prevailing wind is a west wind, but after the heat dome and all the unusual weather, the winds were blowing from the east many days, and the best we did is a day without a headwind for the most part. So the wind was very light. We didn't have the the tailwind we might have had. And when I was getting toward the far end, and at that moment I had a set of aero wheels on because I'd flatted the disc wheel and hadn't flipped it back. I hit an oblique tailwind, which actually helped us, which pulled the bike along with those particular wheels for about 20 minutes. And then right near the very end, I had a direct headwind, which was pretty tough right toward the end. That was right before the pedal broke. But we got through it all.
Okay. Now, what was your support like? What was your crew? And you have to have officials, of course, on this event. So what was that like?
Well, my crew was absolutely amazing. If we had not had the mechanicals and the rain, I was worried that they'd all not have anything to do and they'd all be sitting in the car. We had the crew was 9 people total.
Wow.
And with the rain and with the flats, it was just crazy busy for absolutely. We didn't have a moment all day because as soon as I got the spare wheel, once I had a flat, then they would stop and they would change that flat and then return the wheel to me sometime soon after. So yeah, we had a large crew and they were just absolutely fantastic.
You know, it's a lot of effort, a lot of expense to do something like this. What do you have any particular motivation, John?
Well, there's 2 reasons, and the first one is because it's there. It's just been too appealing for me. I've done some interesting long rides, and the idea of riding right across the province had a ton of appeal. The other one is kind of making up for lost time. I wasn't able to ride for 10 years, and actually, this has been an idea of mine for at least the last 10, 12 few years. And the timing was never right. It's not that easy because I do have arthritis. Everything has to be working really well to do a huge ride like this for me. And I'd almost given up on the idea. And then I was in a minor car accident last year. And I had to sit around for a week. And so I was bored out of my mind. And I went and I looked at the WUCA site to see if anyone had still ridden across Alberta. And nobody had. So then I thought, well, I'm going to try a pretty difficult ride. That was last season. So I did a 300, which had a 7,000 foot pass in the middle of it. And I thought, if that goes well, then I'll do this. It's never too late, sort of thing. So last year's ride went quite well, and then I decided to give it a go.
Yeah. So did you do a lot of training, or you probably ride a lot anyways, don't you?
Well, I do, but no, I definitely upped my mileage. Yeah, I had Greg Kolodkowicz, who's had land and sea 24-hour distance records, was my coach, and he was fantastic. Of course, because of COVID, most of the coaching was remote. I did a ton of mileage, and I tried to do an intensity session once a week. Oh, I should also add that this was a fundraiser. And what it was a fundraiser for, a program for bicycles for First Nations children in Alberta. There's still some money coming in, but it looks like probably 30 kids are going to both get bicycles and go through a program to learn how to ride them.
Well, John, so nice to meet you, and good luck in the future, and maybe we'll see you again.
Yes, that'd be great. Yeah. Thanks.
All right, John's a great guy. I know Denny and I both enjoyed meeting him. All right, guys, I'm going to let Denny and Larry chime in here with a quick update on, I think, maybe the senior games, guys. Let's finish the segment up with that, would you?
Yeah, Larry, tell us a little bit about the National Senior Games. They're coming up next year, and recumbents are going to be allowed. So what do you know about it?
Well, somewhat. It's going to be in May of 2022 in Florida, and the latest is they'll allow recumbents. They're going to spread out 2 wheels and 3 wheels into what they're going to call an open event. So you do not need to qualify at a state qualifier, but that's going to be only for the time trials, which will be 5K and 10K. Recumbents are prohibited in the road race competitions.
Okay. All right. Well, hey, we're making inroads. At least the Senior Games is understanding that there's a lot of people out there on recumbent bikes now, especially on trikes, and in Florida, they're just everywhere. One other thing I'd like to talk about too is coming up in a few weeks is the Mid-Atlantic 112 and 24-hour race, and it's a very good race to get into if you want to try a recumbent. A race that's really great for recumbents. It's very flat, and it's a challenging course. It's fast, it's challenging, not a lot of turns in it, and it's a great area. I love going down there. I've done the race probably 5 times, I think, and every time it's just been a great experience. Wonderful people, and it's a good time. So. Take a look it up, Mid-Atlantic 1224 100. So that's what I got for this month. Guys, stay on the bikes and keep moving forward, okay?
Very good. Thanks, Denny. Great reporting, and we will see you next month. So, all right, Larry, I think we are going to finish up the show with a nod to the wonderful sponsors of the Laidback Bike Report, and they are TerraCycle. From fairings to headrest, whatever accessory you need, Pat and crew have you covered. And Trailside Trikes. If you find yourself in Florida near the Withlacoochee Trail or in Knoxville, Tennessee, check out Andrew's shop and his amazing crew. And Cruise Bike. Hello, Cruise Bike. Their patented race and record-proven front-wheel drive geometry changes the rules of cycling. Now, comfort doesn't come at the cost of performance, but fair warning, your cheeks may hurt from smiling. And TerraTrike Greenspeed. Your vision, whatever it is, TerraTrike has a trike to take you there. And Greenspeed's cutting-edge designs create performance through Aussie ingenuity. And Laidback Cycles, the top USA dealer for TerraTrike and the premier source for CatTrike, Ice, and Greenspeed. We give you the freedom to ride. And Recumbent Cycle-Con. Yes, we postponed the 2021 Recumbent Cycle-Con, but please join us on October 8th and 9th of 2022 at the Montgomery County Fairgrounds in Dayton, Ohio. More information at recumbentcyclecon.com. All right, guys, great. I'm going to tell you that the next Laidback Bike Report will be September 5th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, and we got a lot of stuff in the fire, getting ready to put together another great show for you, so we hope you'll join us on September 5th. Now, how can you support the Laidback Bike Report? If you would like us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, and click that little white eye right up there, take you to the Laidback Bike Report webpage where you can learn lots more about us. And you could even buy a hat if you want to. So take a look at laidbackbikereport.com. And lastly, we really would appreciate it if you'd become a Patreon patron like all these fine folks right here. And there's a number more. You can do so for as little as $1 a month at patreon.com. Just look up the Laidback Bike Report or check the link in the description below. We do have a new Patreon this month. It's Three's a Charm Tricycle Club, so we thank them for joining up. All right, guys, let's bring us all up on stage here for a final thank you. Whoever is left, there we go. And Honza is there somewhere. There we go. Guys, thanks a lot. Great show. We covered a lot of territory today because there's a lot going on. So thanks for helping me out. It was a great show. You guys are just fun, indispensable, and funny. Yeah, of course. Thanks a lot. We'll see you guys next month, I hope. So, yeah, and not only those guys, but I want to thank all you wonderful viewers who support the Laidback Bike Report and watch us every month. We couldn't do it without your support as well. So until our next webcast, from all of us here at the Laidback Bike Report, so long, Bent Riders.